Hello, readers. Welcome back to reading class today. We are going to read lesson number 9 today. So before we get started, let's make sure we're ready. Do we have our textbook? Do we have a bookmark or a finger, something to help us follow along? Do we have our workbook and a pencil? All right, then we are ready to go. We are going to remember to track with our finger, to read each word carefully and pay attention to end marks. Some of our goals, we're going to read with accuracy and expression. We're going to understand what's happening in the story. We're going to make connections to characters' feelings. We're going to enjoy the story. All right, we're going to keep some of these things in mind. Reading is thinking. So as we are reading, all kinds of things are happening in our brains. And it's just really neat to keep those in mind. We're making connections all the time to what if that were me? How would I be feeling and how would I be acting? We are picturing in our minds what's happening. That's called visualizing. We're kind of constantly asking questions and making predictions and then going back and thinking, oh, that's what I thought was going to happen, or nope, I didn't think that was going to happen. All right, we summarize to help us kind of get the main idea or kind of the gist of what happened in the story. And let's see, we mentioned predicting or synthesizing. So synthesizing is kind of a fancy word that just means we are taking new information and kind of blending it with what we already know. So kind of generating new ideas and allowing our thinking to change. So we get new information and then we think about, oh, this is what I thought before. And now I have kind of some new ideas after we blend those together. And then when we infer, we figure things out that aren't necessarily said in the story, but we still can kind of think about, I think I know what's happening here, even though it might not say that with words in the story. We can sort of figure it out. We can use what we know and combine it with what's in the text to infer. So I know in our read aloud, we are doing the City of Ember. We're reading the City of Ember for read aloud. Miss Schultz and Miss Lund and I, and there's a lot of inferring that we can do in the City of Ember because the City of Ember doesn't have a lot of things. And so we can kind of think about, wait a second, if they don't have all these things, then what does that mean about the city? Like, what kind of a city is it? Or, anyway, all kinds of fun thinking to do. Alrighty, here's our reading agenda for today. We have our word lists, our nonfiction passage, our main story, and then we have our review items. Our homework is our workbook, and then we're going to read for 20 more minutes. All right. So lesson 9 today in our textbook, we're going to read about the sun and the earth, and that's our information passage, and then flying with the flock. So remember in the last story, Old Henry and Tim, they met a new flock, and the leader was really nice and kind and was like, sure, Tim can come with us, and we usually go to Reedy Lake, but we can drop him off at Crooked Lake in Florida. So please follow along with me in your textbook. I'm on page 36. And let's look at our words. So we have 3 word lists for today. Let's take a look at column number 1. Word 1 is constant. What word? Something that is constant doesn't change. If a car goes at a constant speed, the speed doesn't change. Word 2, what word? Yeah, sometimes an important man is sometimes called a sir. Sometimes when you want to be very sort of proper, you might say, sir. Yes, sir. And if you want to be very polite and proper to a lady, you would say, yes, ma'am. All right, word 3, what word? Word 4, what word? Word 5, what word? Word 6, what word? And word 7, what word? Right, nice job. Let's try it the fast way. Me first and then you. Constant. Sir. Season. 70. Daylight. hurting, wintertime. Nice job. All right, column 2. Let's see. In column 2, part of each word is underlined. You'll read that part, then you'll read the whole word. Word 1, what's the underlined part? Tilt. And the whole word? Tilted. Word 2, underlined part? Cloud. And the whole word? Cloudy. Word 3, underlined part? And the whole word? Brands. Word 4, underlined part? Splash. The whole word? Splash. Word 5, underlined part? Reach. And the whole word? Reaches. And word 6, underlined part? And the whole word? Nice job. Let's try it the fast way. I'll say it first and then you. Tilted, cloudy, friends, splashing, reaches, hulking. Nice job. And column 3. So in column 3, these are the names of different places. Number 1 is South Carolina. What place? Word 2 is Georgia. What place? Number 3, what place? Number 4, what place? And number 5, what place? Nice job. All right, let's try the fast way. South Carolina, Georgia, Newman's Lake, Jackson Lake, Clarks Hill Lake. Nice job. All right. So let's go ahead and go to the next page.
Hi, makeup.
You have some makeup on, don't you? It's nice. This is Sophia. She's experimenting with makeup with the baby.
Makeup.
Okay.
Because today is Rosie's
Okay. Right. So let's see. Today we're going to try something new. I am just going to show you some pictures from your textbook. So I'm not going to show you all the words because I'm really hoping that you have the words right in front of you. So I'm going to be showing you some pictures as we read, and I would like you to follow along in your textbook. All right, so again, we are on page 36. All right, and we're going to start with part B. So everybody find part B. The title is The Sun and the Earth. Here's a rule about the Earth and the Sun. The Earth is moving around the Sun all the time. That's an important rule. The Earth is moving around the Sun all the time. The Earth makes a complete circle around the Sun one time every year. Listen to the rule again. The Earth makes a complete circle around the Sun one time every year. A year is 365 days, so it can take the Earth 365 days to make a complete circle around the Sun. So how many days are in the year? 365. Nice job. And how many days does it take for the Earth to circle the Sun? 365. How many years does it take for the Earth to circle the Sun? 1 year. Right? The picture shows the Earth at 4 different times of the year as it circles the Sun. So the picture shows 4 Earths. Are there really 4 Earths? No. So the picture shows the same Earth at different times of the year. Touch the picture of the Earth during winter. Notice how much of the Earth is in shadow and how much is in sunlight. Half the Earth is in sunlight. So how much is in shadow? So half. Let's see. Is the part of the earth that is in sunlight closer to the sun or farther from the sun? Closer, right? Follow the arrow around the sun and name the season that is shown by each earth. Start with the earth at winter time. You can go around with your finger. Winter, spring, summer, fall. Winter, spring, summer, fall. Winter, spring, summer, fall. Winter, spring, summer, fall. See how fast you do. Alrighty, let's see. Remember, the earth is in different places at different seasons of the year. All right, let's go ahead and find part C. And part C in our textbook is on page 38. So if you would please turn to page 38 in your textbook, Flying with the Flock. And again, I'm going to show us some pictures here, but I would like you to please follow along in your textbook. All right. There we go. I'll scoot my picture out. Okay. All right. Flying with the Flock. After the geese from the large flock finished talking with old Henry, they went over to their flock. As soon as they had left, Tim said, "When is that other flock going to fly?" "Tomorrow," Henry said. "We planned to fly tomorrow, didn't we?" "Yes," Henry said. "Well, why did you say I would fly with them? I thought I was flying with you." Old Henry said, "Tim, I'm not sure I can make it all the way to Florida. If you go with them, they'll drop you off at Crooked Lake." "But what will you do?" Tim asked. "Aren't you going to fly with them too?" "Well," Old Henry said. He wanted to tell Tim that he didn't plan to go any further south, but Tim looked very sad. So Old Henry said, "Well, I'll go with them as far as I can. I'll fly with them tomorrow, and then I'll see how I feel at the end of the day." All right. So when Henry saw how sad Tim was, he was like, "Well, I guess I'll try. I'll go a little ways, and then I'll see how I feel." So Henry changed his plans again. Henry keeps kind of adapting and changing his plans and kind of thinking about how to best help Tim. And I think they have become buddies because Tim wants Henry around. And I think Henry likes Tim too. "Well, I'm going where you go," Tim said. "If you fly with them after tomorrow, I'll fly with them. But if you don't fly with them after tomorrow, I won't fly with them." "We'll see how it goes tomorrow," Henry said. All right. So Tim is like, "I'm staying with you, Henry. You're my buddy." All right. So the next morning, more than 80 geese took off from the pond in Kentucky and formed a great V in the sky. The leader was near the front of the V, but he was not at the very point of the V. He was back a few places so he could see the front of the V and honk out orders to the other geese. Old Henry and Tim were far behind the leader. Tim was right behind a young goose. Old Henry was in front of one of the older geese. So let's look at the picture. Touch the point of the V. Is the leader at the point of the V? No, he's like a few geese back, isn't he? So why is the leader a few geese back from the point? Yeah, so he can honk out orders to the front of the V. Everybody touch Tim and Henry. Are they close to the leader or pretty far behind? Yeah, they're pretty far behind. All right. After the flock stopped climbing, it was nearly 2 miles high. Tim called out to Henry, "I noticed that it's a lot easier to fly than it was when you and I were alone." "Right," Henry said. "It's easier flying in a large flock." "Why?" Old Henry explained. "We are behind a lot of other geese. Those geese fly through the air and leave a trail of wind that moves in the same direction the geese are moving. We're flying through that air, so we don't have to work as hard as the geese up front." Listen to that part again. We are behind a lot of other geese. Those geese fly through the air and leave a trail of wind that moves in the same direction the geese are moving. We're flying through that air, so we don't have to work as hard as the geese up front. So the picture shows dark blue air and light blue air. The key shows that the dark blue air is standing still, but the light blue air is moving in the direction the flock is moving. So everybody hold your finger on your book and point to show the direction the light air is moving. Going through the light blue air is just like riding your bike with the wind. It's a lot easier than riding your bike against the wind. So Tim and Henry didn't have to work as hard to fly with the flock. So they're flying with the flock, and so that's kind of helping them to give them some momentum. It's kind of like when you're riding your bike and the wind is behind you and the wind is kind of helping you along. It's much easier to ride with the wind than if you were riding your bike and you were coming against the wind. We say if the wind was coming this way and you're trying to go this way, and then it's like, oh, you're kind of really struggling because it's so windy. So flying with the flock is kind of like when you're riding your bike and the wind is behind you and kind of pushing you along. Tim said, "That's good for us, but I sure wouldn't want to be one of those geese up front." So if you look at the goose that's in the tip of the V at the point, you can see that goose has to fly through the air that's not moving. So that goose has to work harder than any of the other geese in the flock. So that goose at the point there, he has to work really hard. Henry said, "All the geese that are up front take turns at being the first goose in the V. They fly at the point for an hour or more and then change places with another goose." Seems like a good idea. Taking turns. All right. Then Henry noticed that his wing wasn't as sore as it had been. He hadn't been thinking about that wing because it hadn't been hurting. Henry realized that it hadn't been hurting because it didn't have to work as hard as it did when he and Tim flew alone. Henry said to himself, "Well, if it doesn't get any harder than this, maybe..." What do you think he's thinking? Oh, he's like, "Well, if it doesn't hurt anymore, maybe I could make it all the way to Florida." He still wasn't sure how he would feel the next morning when the rest of the flock was ready to fly again. Later that afternoon, when the sky was starting to get very cloudy, the great V of geese went lower and lower through the clouds and came out of them above a beautiful green lake. Tim asked Henry, "What's that lake?" Henry said, "I don't know." Henry said, "I don't know. This is not the route I've taken. We always land at Clark's Hill Lake. It's much bigger than this lake, and it's farther east." Then Henry asked the old goose behind him, "What's the name of that lake?" "Jackson Lake." About 10 minutes later, the flock landed on Jackson Lake. All right, so everybody, what's the name of the lake they landed at? Jackson Lake. Had Henry ever landed there before? No. So let's look at the map. Find Jackson Lake. It's one of those dark blue lakes. And raise your hand when you know what state it's in. What state is it in? Georgia. Nice job. Find Clark's Hill Lake. And that lake is in between two states. Raise your hand when you see which two states that lake is in between. Yeah, it's in between Georgia and South Carolina. So which lake is farther east? Clark's Hill Lake or Jackson Lake? And remember, when we look on a map, east is to the right. So which one is farther east? Clark's Hill Lake, yep. And which lake is bigger? Clark's Hill Lake. All right. So that is where we're going to stop for today. What's next? You're going to reread the story one more time on your own. You're going to answer the questions at the end of the story. You're going to do your workbook, and you're going to read for 20 more minutes. And you're going to have a fabulous rest of your day. All right. So I will see you again next week, scholars, for more reading. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And make sure you get outside in some fresh air. But also make sure you do lots and lots of reading. Bye.